Good morning, everybody, and welcome, as crazy as it is to say this, to 2023. I recorded this episode before 2023, but yet here we are. It is the first release of the new year, and before I get into my guest, which he is a repeat guest, let's talk about who actually makes this podcast possible. I think that a lot of people, when they hear about brands, specifically since we're talking about Black Rifle Coffee, they think of it as a huge organization, oftentimes without a face. And to me, I was introduced to Black Rifle Coffee at an individual level. I got very lucky, and I realized that not everybody has this opportunity, but I met the people who actually created it and got to know them as they were certainly earlier on in their ascent as to what they are now, and who freaking knows what they're going to be in the future, because they are on a rocket ship. And when the opportunity presented itself to align myself more closely with them, I wasn't even thinking about it from a brand perspective. I was thinking about it from a perspective of supporting my friends and people that I consider to be my peers, to be my mentors. And it wasn't even a matter of thinking twice about it. So that's what Black Rifle Coffee means to me. Now, beyond that, it's obviously a great place to get your coffee. It's a great place to get things to drink coffee in, or to wear T-shirts or hats or whatever it may be. And the best place you could go to do that, and in turn support the podcast, is blackriflecoffee.com. It's super easy. I'm looking at their site right now. They're actually doing a clear-out sale, up to 70% off selected items. Now, I don't know what those items are because I'm not going to click on it, because you can do that if you want to. But they're also doing a buy one bag and get 50% off. I mean, that doesn't suck. Now, I'm going to shut my suck, speaking of sucks, and get into this episode. The guest today is my dad. Repeat guest, goes by a variety of names. He goes by Vaughn, or Dick Broom Actual, a name that I gave to him, and my son Tyler appreciates as well and also calls him. I'm not sure that my dad knows exactly what it means, but it doesn't matter. I do, and therefore I take great joy from it. But I tell you what, I never thought I was going to start a podcast, and I never thought that I would have the ability to sit down and talk with my dad in the manner that we are able to, and to preserve it for as long as this medium will last, because none of us are going to be here forever. But the ability for me to go back and listen to these episodes when it's all I have the chance to do, well, I can't think of anything that's going to mean more to me in my life. And with that, episode 266 with my dad, Vaughn Stumpf. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Yeah, what do you think of the new digs?
I like it. It has changed every time. Yeah, it's nice. I like the video you got there.
I don't know what else could we add, Michael?
I feel like we got it, unless you really want that cough button.
I don't,
Perfect.
because I can go like this.
Oh,
and just come
smart.
right.
That's smart. The less expensive option.
Where's the landscape from?
That is what's called stock photography from Macintosh, and I believe that is somewhere near the Catalina Islands, off the coast of San Diego.
Yeah.
I think. I have no idea, but that is straight up stock Macintosh. So
Yeah.
I remember what I wanted to start with. Where were you in Montana when you got ejected out of the windshield of the van?
Oh, gosh, that was outside of Missoula. Oh, let me think. Oh, gosh. It was up out of the Swan Valley.
Yep.
And there was, I had driven through up the Blackfoot River, turned west up towards the Swan Valley, and there was a mountain range there, and it was, excuse me, raining on one side, and I got to the top, and I touched the brakes again going down this steep road, and the bus went sideways.
We should probably talk about your choice of winter vehicle as well.
The van?
Yeah. So
That was
driving
my off-road vehicle.
He was driving a Volkswagen Vanagon, Michael, which is not traditionally known for its capability off-road or in the snow.
Oh, I could take that thing anywhere.
I'm not saying you can't take it anywhere. I'm saying it's
Oh, I
not
did.
designed
Yeah, no, it
to be
wasn't.
taken anywhere.
But if I got too steep, I'd just turn around and back up, put chains on it. Yeah.
So you tap the brakes.
Yeah, and it went sideways.
Yeah.
And I immediately went over the double line, and I could see the guardrail.
Oh, so you went into oncoming traffic lanes?
It was country road, hardly anybody there. Going sideways, and I'm going, oh, shit. Everything I've been through, this is how I'm going to die. And I'm going through the gears trying to slow this thing down, just hearing the transmission just go.
Well, fortunately, there's only 4 in a Volkswagen, so it didn't take long.
Well, just imagine how all this was going on in my head.
Yeah.
And I'm moving slower and slower over, and I started to turning it, and I hit the guardrail and went pew, right off. And I came to, and I was down in a gully with a tree sticking right through the windshield. Yeah, and I had laid over in the seat.
Oh, so you were still in the vehicle?
Yeah, I never got ejected out. No, I didn't get ejected out. The tree came through the windshield at me, and I had laid down on the passenger seat, had my arm through the steering wheel, which separated my shoulder.
Were you wearing a seatbelt?
Oh, fuck no.
Of course not.
No. I had 3 empty beer cans on the floor, and I'm going, and I had this flashback. I thought you were with me. And I go, Jesus, where's Andy? And I started, and my shoulders just in the toilet. But I got myself out, got the door halfway open, and I crawled out. I'm laying there, and I could hear somebody coming down the side of the mountain to me. And he said, don't move. And I said, what's wrong? He says, the bus is tilting. It's teetering. And I said, well, which way is it going so I can go the other way? And I just crawled out. Come to be that in that exact location, they'd had 2 other incidences that day in that spot.
Really?
The highway patrol, that's the reason the highway patrol got there so quick. And, it was just a black ice, and it was nasty. The guy gets me up on the roadway. I could stick my tongue through my lip, and shrouded glass all through me. And then I hear this whoop, 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 whoop. And I said, what's that? And I knew what it was. He says, I said, no, I'm not riding a helicopter into the hospital. I said, I've done that. I'm not doing that again. So he took me to the hospital. I finished about a third of a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I was ready. It scared the holy dog crap out of me.
What ended up happening to that van?
Well, your mom, and that was the frightening thing. Your mom and I went down, Victor down from Hamilton outside of Missoula. There was a wrecking yard there. And we went there to get some of the stuff that I had left in it. And I saw the condition of it, and it affected me. I couldn't believe how fortunate and lucky I was.
Was it just a crumpled mess?
Yeah, it was. It was about half the length of what it had been before. It was just compressed and mangled. It wasn't pretty.
Where did you and Mom develop your love of Volkswagens? Because the Volkswagen Vanagon made an appearance again later in life, because that's what I learned how to drive in.
Yeah.
And Mom had, what was the actual name of it? The Cabriolet?
Oh, no. What was that?
It was a Rabbit.
It was a Vanagon.
No, the Vanagon, the brown Vanagon is what I learned how to drive in,
Yeah.
but Mom's green convertible.
Oh, that
Isn't
was
it
the Rabbit.
Yeah, Rabbit Cabriolet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in the 60s, Volkswagens were the cheap vehicle. They were dependable. They were small. They were easy. And it was what we could afford. I mean, the first car that Mom and I bought together, brand new, was a Volkswagen Squareback.
What'd that run you?
Oh, shit, I don't know, $12,000, something like that. Yeah, but and then when we moved back from Montana to Bonnie Doon, and Mom started the computer printing manufacturing thing, putting all those heads together, she did really well with that, and she bought herself that convertible Rabbit. That was her car. Yeah, she loved that car.
The same one that she still had when she passed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, did she still? Yeah, well, it sat in their driveway because she eventually bought a
Mercedes.
Well, before she bought the Mercedes, she bought a Honda, nice sedan Honda, real nice car, And then she was working at IBM, and on the message board, she saw this guy was getting rid of this Mercedes, and she picked that up.
Yeah.
But it was just a great vehicle for us, you know. Me, it's all about being functional. But when we destroyed I destroyed the Vanagon in Missoula, we turned around and bought another one because we had the flower business, so we needed it for deliveries. And we had that until after the condom incident, and I eventually sold it and bought the Tundra. Yeah.
I remember, and I feel like you and Mom would have been thrown in jail now for the amount of road trips that we did in that van. And if I remember correctly, the middle seats got taken out, plywood from the rear seat to the little edge that the front seats were sitting on, mattress on top,
yeah.
and then Casey and I with dogs would just ride back there, not a fucking seatbelt to be seen, and just all over.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I mean, I think Casey was 13 or 14. We'd be out in the middle of Nevada driving. I'd let her drive.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. You were always sitting right behind her, making sure she didn't run out of petrol.
Well, I don't know what my issue was, but at a young age, I was concerned about running out of gas. Yes.
Well, the scary thing was we went to Seattle one time like that, and we were cars were spinning out around us and couldn't figure out what it was.
I distinctly remember being on a road and watching cars circle out into the median in that goddamn Vanagon, which rear-wheel drive, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Again, not an all-terrain, not an all-weather vehicle, but yet we were rallying in it in all of those conditions.
Yeah, it's a road trip. But I realized, my God, we're on black ice.
Yeah.
So I saw an off-ramp, so I just slowed way down and just negotiated off. And, yeah, that was a scary time. No, we just load everything in there. It was a great storage space underneath the mattress.
Yep. And wait 45 minutes for Mom to come out of the house?
Yeah, we'd have the crank with us, and you guys, and, a cooler of beer and sandwiches. And
I remember distinctly multiple times you in the car running, Casey and I in the back, probably fucking arguing with each other because that's all we did at that age. I feel like you may have laid on the horn once or twice, and Mom coming out with a look like she was about ready to murder you and everybody else.
Oh, yeah, that look was horrifying.
But what would you think? A good 30 to 45-minute wait we would usually have in the van before she would be ready to go?
Oh, yeah. Now I know where you're at. Yeah, Mom had no concept of time at all. None. I mean, we would sit there, wait 20, 30 minutes, and she wouldn't come out, and God knows what she'd be doing in there. But
yeah, we're talking trips that we had planned for weeks.
Oh, yeah. And we'd all be sitting in there, Max would be sitting in the front seat. You kids would be in the back screaming, yelling about something.
Max was a massive bull mastiff, sweetest dog ever.
He had a 22-inch neck and probably about 13 inches, 13 pounds of foreskin. That's why we called him the Crank.
He was walking around with Thor's hammer for sure.
Oh, yeah, and he was an alcoholic.
Oh, that's right. Michael, you would love this dog. He would fill up buckets with beer, and the dog would submerge his head into the bucket, and all you would see was bubbles coming out as the liquid would drop, and then he would go pass out in the garage.
Well, the Maggot Fest was right 6 houses from us. I'd have to go find him. He'd be passed out somewhere in the end zone. He'd burping and farting, he was just... But they had the beer trucks would show up, and the stale beer they just put in this bucket, and he would submerge his head down into that.
Yeah, he would get so fucked up he couldn't walk back to the house, which was like...
I'd have to take the Vanagon over there, and it would take 3 of us to pick him up and put him in the van, take him home.
And that's when we were living near the Lewis and Clark Elementary, right?
Yeah, right.
Which I drove by... It was a few months ago. I was down in Missoula, and I forget which road I was on. My geography of Missoula is not great. But I remember looking over to the right. I was like, holy shit. And so I know our house was somewhere near there because I would walk home.
Yeah.
You guys thought I was going to daycare, but I was coming home to watch G.I. Joe, which I was... Leah still doesn't understand how I got away with that one for so long. I told her that story recently. But where was the house? It was only like 4 or 5 blocks from that school. It's not Lewis and Clark either. It's a private school now.
It was 6 houses from the fields.
I didn't see the fields when I saw...
Fremont Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 6 houses. We bought that place. We were living up on the hill in a rental. That's where our cat, GB,
Lost her leg. I remember that.
Sleeping in the engine mount, and Mom started it up, and its leg was hanging through the fan belt system.
That's the same house that Casey had just had her arm uncasted. I remember she did a handstand, and I heard it crack.
Snap again.
Yeah, snapped it again.
But yeah, we bought that house for $55,000.
The duplex.
No, the home
one
we moved down
into.
to. Yeah.
Okay.
And it had the basement where you guys lived in.
Yep.
We had the upstairs. Yeah, I sold that home probably, 20 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about Max. Didn't you... Was that the same house that guy brought over the frozen deer so you skinned it with a chainsaw?
One of the young rugby players, the Storm came in. He said, I want to quarter this. I said, no problem. We hung him from the rafters in the garage. I got the chainsaw out and did it in minutes.
Well, yeah.
Max was licking deer remnants for months.
It's a controversial move. You're going to get a little bit of a...
Mom gave me the eyeball on that one.
Yeah,
she came out in the garage and went, what is that all over the wall?
Fuck. There's going to be a little bit of meat waste on that for sure, but it
was effective. It worked real quick.
Yeah, you're going to get it into quarters really rapidly.
Well, it was frozen solid.
Yeah.
I mean, it was...
In hindsight, maybe a hatchet would have been better, or an axe. Probably.
It was laying there.
Where were we? I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I don't know if we have on a previous one. That one day that you took me hunting, and you missed that elk.
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was up the Blackfoot River, and I was in the vet center, and one of the guys in there had a piece of property off the main road, and it had access to that whole mountain range off of the Blackfoot River. And I used to go up there and fish, and I took you up there that one time in a hunt.
Is this near Missoula?
It was 12 miles outside of Missoula. Okay. Yeah, you drive, I forget what the town was, a little town just outside of Missoula, and you head up the Blackfoot River, and then there's that huge bull that they have as a...
The cow?
The cow that there.
That's not 12 miles. I know where that is. That's not 12 miles from Missoula. It's about an hour.
Okay. It's all relevant. But that's where we were. Thank God I missed that thing. I don't know how. Well, I just would have went back to town and got a bunch of the guys and waited to come out there and yanked it out of there.
This is the same day that you shot that grouse with the rifle, right?
Shot him with a pistol.
Was it a pistol?
Yeah. Fuck. That Magnum. Feathers everywhere.
We were just walking along and we stumbled on that elk, didn't we?
No, we'd actually sat down. We were having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I could hear something across, just crashing through this,
Was it a bull?
Yeah, it was a bull. He was a good-sized bull, but, I lost track of him when he came back up, and I probably should have obviously waited longer, been a little more particular about what I was doing. But you're there in your snowsuit with your hat and your gloves, and good God, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of areas you could go up there at those years that you had access to.
I think that still exists. I mean, there is a lot more, from my understanding, a lot more private property now. But also, in my experience, if you're not an asshole and you go and you talk to people, you can still get. Not everybody. There are some people who are just an absolute hard pass, like you cannot come on here and they'll report you for trespassing. But I've also had some good experience with landowners.
Well, it's the first place I'd ever come to where I was out on my own. I might have had my friend, Greg might have been with me. We used to go hunting up there. And these trees that the elk had scraped the moss off their antlers off. It was, and they'd urinated on everything. It just stank. But it was impressive what they had done there.
I was in White Sulphur. So you're asking me about the Euro mount that sits above the fireplace at the house. And so I got that with Dudley Archery. And I think it was the same day that we shot that bull, which was on September 11th. It was crazy. But as we were walking to where we eventually encountered that animal, we came across essentially a corridor that looked like there was not a strip of bark on any tree.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable the amount of damage that they can do. I think I know at first they're scraping the velvet off, but I think other than that, they're just like horny as shit.
Yeah. And as far up the tree they got with it as well was impressive.
Yeah, like 8-10 feet up.
Yeah, you talk about hunting it there. My friend Scotty Belknap and I would go to Billings, Montana to hunt antelope. Huge ranches there.
Yeah.
And I'd always take a real fine box of cigars with us, and we'd go up, knock on the main house, and they were always very, very, very cordial. They, you say, okay, you guys will be okay, because Scotty was he was a smoke jumper, so he had a lot of credibility.
Yeah.
And we'd say, which direction did we go, how far? And they just said, all we want you to do is make sure you always close the gates behind us, and you can go as far as you want. And we'd find these old sod dugouts that the original settlers, we're using cow chips for fuel, and it works well. It just was an amazing, such a different part of Montana than this is. It's so flat and so much, and the sky, what a light show! Good God!
Every time I go out there or go any level of backcountry hunting, I always have the same thought. I always come back to how horrendous it must have been to try to move from east to west in a horse-drawn wagon that had no suspension whatsoever.
None at all.
Wooden wheels with maybe like a little bit of metal on the outside, because like you said, it's flat, but then there are all these little waterways and ravines, and then you get into the hills and mountains where we are now, which you're cruising along at 70 in your car, like, oh, this is a piece of cake. Doing that shit in a wagon where nobody's actually been.
How do you decide where you're going to stop? There's really not any.
When you've had enough of that shit.
I guess, but you still need water. That's why dry farming was invented. When it would rain, they would plow the fields to lock that moisture in, and that's when they would plant, because the rainfall out there was non-existent. Antelope are great animals to hunt. They put outposts around the herd, and as the herd moves, and
great vision too.
Oh yeah, and they can detect anything. I can remember crawling on my back with my rifle on my chest up this little gully, trying to get closer. I did, but it was a great hunt. It was just a great hunt. Just the stuff I like. It just
tell you what they can't see. A 300 Win Mag round coming from about 700 yards.
Yeah, well,
surprise, motherfucker!
I had a 200. I had a 270 Winchester, so I didn't reach out like that. So but it would be great because you could get 4 or 5 tags, and we go back to the farmer's place, hang them up in a shed, and we'd sleep out in his. He'd have these hay piles, and it was Jesus, what a place, just complete comfort.
I think you can still get some tags. It depends. It really depends on where you are. I believe there are some districts where I think they call them B tags, but you can get over the counter, and I think it changes per year, because there's actually, and what people may not understand is that most of like I'm trying to think of the exact word of it, but the Montana Fish and Wildlife, a lot of their budget is paid for through people who pay to hunt.
Oh, for sure.
So the more people that are out there hunting, there's actually more staff members available to check the herd sizes and all this stuff that they do. So it's a closed loop ecosystem.
Well, one thing I got involved in while we were in Missoula is I got hooked up with the Fish and Game Department and taught hunter safety for 3 years at the University of Montana. Classes, I'd have maybe 15 or 20 young kids. Casey went through it 1 year. And you talk to them everything, survival and what you put in your backpack, And I say, what's the first thing you always put in your backpack? And
whiskey,
toilet paper, But I showed them for fires and its obvious use, and marking. If you're out, you could make trails. But going through the different sizes of rifle and how it's calibrated and how you cross a fence, you do it by yourself or you're with pairs, how you walk, whether you're shotgun hunting, whether you're just all. It was a great class. It was so rewarding. Every once in a while, we'd be out somewhere hunting, and you'd be in a restaurant in a small town, and one of your students with his dad would be there, and they'd come over, and it's, yeah, those things are priceless.
Did Casey ever hunt?
No.
I can't actually.
Just like she never skied either,
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to think of what she would be like taking her on a hunt.
Well, I took her a couple of times, like I took you. I pack her up in her snowsuit.
That's unfortunate. I'm sorry you had to experience that.
Oh, I loved it. You look back. These are the things you're my age. You're sipping a 4-finger cocktail, and you go, God, I can remember that. But those are the things that get you through the day. And I look at my grandkids today, and the world's changed so damn many ways. It's just, we started coming to Ennis, Montana in 1961, and it, excuse me, I think it had 4 bars and 2 restaurants and a theater. And the theater had speakers on the outside because they wouldn't allow the Indians to go in and watch the movies. They'd make them sit outside and listen to it.
Jesus.
1961, and the campground is still there as you come in Ennis, down below the bridge. I just scattered with Chip his dad's ashes there a couple of years ago.
That's wild.
Every time I go by that area, I go by there and stop because it's one of the few places in my life where I've ever seen all of my men in my family smiling at the same time. It was all about just having fun, and that was a rare occasion. It was just all about work most of the time. But yeah, it's just you go to places. You look at the Madison River from Yellowstone down to Ennis now, and I mean it's just a freeway of float people, and and it's just, I mean everybody's got a right to it. I mean it's good, but it's. I know I'm looking, we're coming back up here, and I was looking today on the computer about fly fishing in northern Montana, and in fact, a young guy that was in your shop, we talked about the Yak River, and he says, oh, that's pristine. And
Graham?
Graham, yeah. And he said, man, how'd you think of that? I said, I Googled it, I said, and there it was. And he said, those are places that are like you can remember.
Do you ever think you would actually even seriously consider moving back to Montana?
Never stopped thinking about it.
Well, what year did we leave?
1989, 88.
I was going to say it was before because the earthquake was in 89.
Yeah, 88.
I think it was before that. Because I feel like we were in Sebastopol for a year or two before the earthquake hit.
It might have been 87.
Yeah.
I never stopped thinking about it, but the time in Montana was tough because the recession hit, and in Montana, where there's very little industry, when the recession hit, there wasn't a lot of money. And we were running a business and worked it to death, and it just wasn't going to make it because there just wasn't that money. And it was tough. Mom graduated, and I never had the conversation with Mom about moving back to Montana. It wasn't until I lost Mom and I was out on my own running around for a couple months after she had died with Elvis. And I came back to Montana, and I go, Jesus, how do I get here? I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And,
How did you guys settle on opening a flower shop?
Just looking for a business to buy that we could run. I got a hold of the biggest realty firm, the one I went to work for.
Lambros.
Lambros Realty. And they had a series of businesses. We looked at it. Mom had one of her oldest and dearest friends had operated flower shops, and Mom was real gifted with that, very artsy, crafty. So I got the books. I took them to the family accountant. He said, everything looks fine. And we brought Sandy, was her name, up with us, and she stayed there for a month and got us started. And the bedding plant business was there. Mom was a wonderful, great eye for gifts, and we expanded it into a gift shop, did really well with that. But it was just, there just wasn't any money there after a while.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. It's one of those bumps in the road that it either breaks you or it makes you, puts a little more stiffness in your spine. You just got to keep moving on. and having, a woman like Mom, there wasn't any question about that. We're moving on, Yeah, we're going. Okay. Yeah, it was a hard time, but it was a great time at the same time. It's like most things. It's what you make out of it.
How much has California changed in the time? I mean, because you were born and raised, we were born at the same hospital in Santa Cruz.
No, I was born at the hospital on the other side of the street.
I thought we were both born at Dominican.
I was born in the original Dominican, which was across the street. That taco shop you go to on the other side of the street, which is a little commercial complex now,
Yeah.
That's where I was born.
But it was still called Dominican?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, because it's the same group of sisters that ran
Technically,
it.
I'm correct.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, shit. Santa Cruz, when I was a kid, the San Lorenzo River was the blue ribbon steelhead stream of the western United States. And it's not any wider than this table is right now because of the development up in the mountains and the drawing the water off. You can't go anywhere with it not being wall-to-wall people. And now the construction's all going multi-story.
Vertical instead of horizontal.
Just, and it was always a liberal community. It was a creative place. People were there, artists, authors, and what have you. But when the real change came is when they brought the University of California in there and put it up on the hill on the Cal property. And I think it's been a lot of great things come from that. There's some bad things that have come from it, but it ushered in a era of growth that has become unchecked. Guys up there, you get renting 2-3 bedroom homes to the students for $5,000 a month.
How are they paying for that?
They're cramming 8 and 10 people into a home.
I mean, I guess that's one way.
Yeah, but the growth, I mean, you go anywhere. Go over to San Jose. We used to drive over the Highway 17 down in Los Gatos. It would be all apple orchards, fruit trees. You can't see anything now. San Diego. Your mom and I would drive from San Diego to Escondido. The only thing in between was the Naval Air Station, which became Top Gun.
Miramar?
Miramar. Now you cannot leave San Diego and not leave residential or commercial. It's everywhere. We live in a real nice neighborhood, have still some old friends there, but it's like I told you, we went 5 miles on an evening where I went and talked to the Lions Club one evening, and it took us an hour to go 5 miles because of the traffic.
Yeah.
It's like a science experiment. How many rats can you put in a box before they start eating each other?
Well, it's a science experiment from a population perspective too, but it also seems to be a science experiment from an ideological perspective as well.
Well, yeah, everybody's digging their trenches and putting their compounds up, and they're waving their old flags. And Santa Cruz is probably the craziest friggin' liberalist community in the United States.
I describe it as being so far left that it ends up on the right somehow. It is, and by that I don't mean they end up on the right side of the political aisle.
Yeah.
It's just so incredibly, and I don't have any judgment of that.
I don't either. I mean, they're lovely people. I understand there's a lot of problems out there today that nobody's got any idea how to fix. But
that doesn't mean you should create more problems, though.
Well, just look at the homeless problem in Santa Cruz. Today, people are laying and sleeping on the streets, and now we walk by them like they're part of the landscape. And that drives me absolutely crazy. And it's huge. I mean, it is just huge. You can't go anywhere. Your neighborhoods aren't safe. I got up one morning, heard something rustling on our front porch last winter. And there's a guy sleeping on the porch.
No shit.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, Buster, come here. Get his ass.
I think I would have stood up on the kitchen counter and maybe urinated through the window.
Well,
I mean, that would have taken a lot of preparatory steps.
You
to
know,
make
I
that
had all
happen.
of those thoughts. I opened the door, and the poor guy he was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, he says, "I'm so goddamn sorry." You know, and he had a pair of tennis shoes, no socks, pair of Levi's, some flannel shirt, and a shit bag down jacket, and he was freezing to death. And I just said, "Hey, look, man, I'm sorry, but you got to take this somewhere else. I got a family here, you know." But and so many of them have families. You go anywhere now on the outskirts of Santa Cruz, and the campers, old buses. I mean, the police can't even monitor it. You know, the rear axles on the ground. They've got butane tanks everywhere. Yeah, it's.
How do you solve that?
Well, I think one of the first things you have to do is you have to recreate the public health system that California used to have. We had such a wonderful, because a lot of this isn't so much a homeless problem as it is a mental health problem. I mean, there's some bums out there,
Yeah.
but most of them, these people are just, they shouldn't be on the streets. New York is going through this right now where they're involuntarily taking them and putting them in hospitals, the ones that are really out there yelling and screaming at the moon. And we have those as well. I mean, they're just psychotic. They're out there. I mean, the largest metric that is growing right now in homeless is children, because people are losing their homes and they're trying to create some place in a mobile home or what have you. A lot of it's economic, a lot of it's social, a lot of it's health. Yeah, I don't know. It frightens me. I look at this. I come to find out off my women's rugby club, I had 3 or 4 of them that were living in the cars, couldn't afford the housing at the university
While still being a
while
student
going
at
to
UCSC?
school and playing rugby. You know, it just, as you dig a little deeper and peel the onion back a little bit, you find out how close it really is to you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, you go, oh gosh. You know, I really had a thought before I left. We used to always, Debbie and I would have Thanksgiving, and we'd always have 4 guys over that were struggling. We had Precious, we had Ben Crabb, we had Jay. Shay. God. Debbie's boy. What the
Shay.
hell? Shay, yeah. And Sproul. All 4 of them are dead.
Well, Sproul and Precious are the same person.
Yeah, okay. Well, we had one other. There was one more, and that was the oddball. We always have an oddball to roll through. But they're all gone. They're all dead, you know. And, well, Scotty. Scotty was the other one. Scotty, 2 years ago, died in our house watching while we were up here. Yeah, he was living in his car, and just, it's frightening. I mean, again, the divide that we have between those that have and those that don't. It used to be real, it was close to the boundaries, but now you got so much of what the wealth is here, and then it's a wasteland out there. And it's, I don't know how working people make it today. I don't. The police officers, first responders, the firemen, they can't afford to live in our town. So they're living, and we lose them right away. You look at the scarcity of teachers that are leaving the teaching profession that can't afford to maintain a family life, and as a school teacher. Most of it gets back to economics. That's probably way too simple of an answer, but
I think I would agree with you. I'm sure there's somebody out there who says, fuck it, I'm going to be homeless. But I don't think it's...
Well, you got a whole nother specter out there now of these young people that there's feeling of self-entitlement that they'd rather sit at home and live off the dole and not work, and not be productive. I
don't understand the long-term play there. I mean, it's at some point the crashing reality of life, and the real world is going to kick you right in the teeth, and you're going to be so far behind your peers.
But their parents, their family have done everything to shield them from that. You're the precious one. Everybody gets a ribbon. Everybody gets an award.
When do you remember that starting? Because I don't remember it being like that when I was growing up. And I suspect it certainly wasn't like that when you were growing up.
No, it wasn't. I mean, you and I didn't have choices. We just went to work. That's what we did. That's how we created a family business. Oh, gosh, I guess it was probably the next generation after yours. It really got into this, oh, God, how would you call it? Humanistic approach. There were no boundaries. Everything was just soft and curved, and life is full of boundaries. There's things that are going to bite you right in the ass.
You're talking about people not like wanting to shift back and forth between gender and sex and all that stuff, or what are you talking about?
No, just I saw it in school when I was teaching school. Have kids come and just say, "Hey, I don't listen. I don't need to do this shit." Here's a classic example. My last year in teaching, I was an athletic director at a high school. I went to the school board and said, look, it was a private school, all parents. There's a school board. I said, I want to create a minimum GPA that these kids have to be able to maintain to participate in sports.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Football season, first grading period, half the team isn't, and they're all the kids on the school, parents on the school board, and the school board changed the policy right away. I'm going. I handed my resignation in 2 weeks later. I said at the end of the year I'm done. I said, what lesson have you just taught your children?
Well, the lesson is you don't need to change what you're doing. You should expect the world around you to change, which isn't. And here's what I don't understand about that approach. I've heard this statement made by others who are much smarter than me, but like as a human being right now, it's the safest time in the history of being a human being, whether it's through our advancements in medicine and science or whatever it may be. If you look at violent crime in most areas of the United States, it's actually down. It's down. From a statistical perspective, and I understand that statistics can be flawed and manipulated to make whatever point you want to, but it's the safest time it's ever been. And people want to have somehow shifted into this ideology that we should avoid discomfort at all costs. Don't hold the child accountable to the GPA. You remember my strategy playing high school sports: academic probation, slightly off. Academic probation, slightly off.
Oh, you had the same one I had, yeah.
Yeah, and it only worked because I wanted to play water polo and baseball.
That's right.
And if they would have actually not had that, my GPA would have been, not that it could have been much lower than it actually was, but it certainly would have been lower.
Well, you're making my point. It's just where it starts. I mean, and it is... Look at the friggin' problem at the border. Let's sit down and figure this shit out. I mean, we can't have this unlimited immigration. It's just not going to work.
You would have to first get our government and all of the people that work for our government to actually sit down and agree that there is a problem.
That's my point. But my point being, and I've looked at this, I don't think we'll ever solve that problem until we go back into the countries that these people, because they're not coming, most of them aren't coming from Mexico. They're from Nicaragua and all these different countries.
No, yeah, their portal is through Mexico because that's the physical way to get to the United States.
You've got to recreate their economy and everything in these countries. Because I know most of the Hispanics that I know very well have been successful in the United States, and some of them overwhelmingly. Every one of them would leave today and go back to Mexico if they could create that living there. These people want to go back. They'd love to be there. I don't know if maybe that's part of the solution.
Well, that's a solution that's going to have to happen organically in that country. We have enough problems in this country. We probably should start with solving our own.
But a lot of those problems in those countries we created.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Or had a hand in it for sure.
But like I said, it's only part of the puzzle. But the very, very biggest one is getting, quote unquote, our politicians on both sides of the aisle and every spectrum to sit down and say, hey, we got a problem here.
Do you think where do you land on the political spectrum? Where would you describe yourself?
Depends what the issue is. I'm very conservative on a lot of things and very accepting on others. I fit right in the middle. I don't try to identify with one or the other.
Do you feel that either party represents you very well?
No.
Yeah, I kind of land in the same way. So with that in mind, do you actually think that our political system is recoverable the way that it is?
Yeah, we've been through tough times before. I mean, you go back and look at the Depression. You look at what FDR, you go back in the early 1900s when the robber barons were taking control of everything. And it was that's before they had the U.S. Federal Bank. And that's where the money come to run this country. They were borrowing money from Carnegie and all of these people. You look at FDR and the Depression and where we were. People were migrating out of the middle of America in spoked wheel cars looking for work, to anything. And we came out of it. A lot of the programs people today, in particular the conservatives, don't like because we created jobs. We put people back to work. The WPA, the Conservation Corps, we built bridges, we built Hoover Dam. All across it, we put people back to work, got them a level of dignity. You look at the early 50s after Korea, McCarthyism, and he came through and labeling people communists, and it just tore the fabric of our culture apart. We've survived those things. We're starting to see the dimming of Trump's orbit. So we're surviving it, moving on. You know, it'll take a while to get some of his accolades out of the political system. We'll get through that. It's again, how? If I had that answer.
Well, there's some really big differences. One of them is the size of the United States government now, and maybe it has grown in. I'm over my skis, making this assumption, but I suspect that the government has grown exponentially in comparison to the population of the United States, and things are actually pretty backwards right now. Like, the government itself should not know that much about the personal life of its citizens, but the citizens should know almost everything about what's going on in the government because they're elected officials and they're public servants. And right now, that axis is completely flipped. And people are making a career out of public service, and I'm using air quotes for those of you who are just listening, and I don't think they're actually serving the people that they represent.
Don't disagree 100%. I'm completely with you. I watch.
Well, I don't know how we change that without making sweeping changes to the government.
Just in my lifetime, watching how Congress would work and the bipartisanship of it and how the word compromise was used.
Yeah.
You know, you look at, what the hell was Kennedy, his vice president. He needed the South, so he got Johnson, who was the congressman from Texas. And was it Johnson? God, can't remember my names. Anyway.
Was it Kennedy as vice president?
Yeah.
Michael can pull it.
Yeah.
Who we got, Michael?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson. He was a friggin' crook, but it was compromise. What do you need? He'd find somebody who needed something. He'd go there. Okay, I can get you this, but you got to give me this. Today, we're so tribalized in everything. I don't know how long that's going to take for us to get past it. I mean, you've got the Republicans, and I strongly support a lot of their standards, but they have no alternative for any type of health care other than what we have, you know, and they've had plenty of time since Obama to come up with something, and they can't. Again, like I was talking about California, Ronald Reagan was the governor of California before he was the president of the United States, and we had a wonderful public health system. Your grandma, Mom's mother, was a public health nurse, and she worked up in the mountains of Santa Cruz when the hippie stage started, where, you know, people were looking for every alternative lifestyle, and a lot of people were just being bums. But people could go get health care. You could get shots for your kids. If I was out of it was there. He was elected governor. He came in and he says, I completely support this, but you have to run it by each county. Everybody said, that's fine. The only thing that he did is he cut off the state budget. He said, you have to pay for it yourself. And there was no county that could pay for it. I mean, so again, this was this austere, conservative economic plan that had benefits, but the downsides, and your grandma predicted exactly what was going to happen. It's happening today. Yeah, I mean, is there any one easy fix? I can't see it. I mean, I look at these people today. Number one, we can't have people running our government the age of Pelosi and some of these other people.
What are you talking about? They're doing great.
Oh, yeah, they're doing wonderful. Yeah, I got it. But, I mean, I just,
what do you think the maximum age should be?
God. I think when you reach 65, that should be it. You retire like everybody. I
think that would be a lot more palatable if we put term limits in at every level of government, because then you couldn't find yourself as a person like Biden who has spent more time in politics than outside of it.
Oh.
Well, he spent more time of his life in politics than he has spent outside of it, and people will use that as like, well, he's the most qualified person and this, that, or the other. And I just, I wouldn't want the man driving an automobile that I was sitting in the back of.
I wish they would stop showing pictures of him walking.
I don't, because they're fucking awesome.
But I think he's got, I think he offers a lot for us. I think his mind, because he is.
I don't think you should use the term his mind and offers a lot for us. That guy, I'm sorry, but if you just watch him speak.
Oh, speaking is horrible.
Well, that's directly tied to his mind. Let's be clear.
Yeah, well.
Yes, it is. The mind controls what comes out of your mouth.
I can't speak very well, but I still have.
Well, you're old as fuck. And guess what? Good thing you're not the president.
Yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree with you, but it's. I mean, you look at our Supreme Court today. It is so politicized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got like a 22% approval rating. This is not supposed to be a politically, even though it is. And I know when the Democrats in, they want to pack it. But we are so far off the skew of what, that is our Supreme Court, not the politicians' Supreme Court.
Is it still our Supreme Court?
It doesn't appear to be.
Well, and that's why I asked the question of, do you think that the current structure is salvageable? Because I understand what it's supposed to be.
I don't know what you would replace it with.
I don't either.
I think it's still you. Sometimes you got to go out and trim the tree a little thinner than you want.
The problem is that we're asking the people who are in those positions to trim their tree.
Yeah, no.
I am still baffled.
I want to see the Electoral College flush down the toilet. I want one vote.
The concept of it, you mean?
Oh, all of it, the structure of it, everything. I understand when they were
if you get rid of the Electoral College, New York and basically the L.A. County will determine the outcome of every election in the United States.
No, if one vote counts for everybody.
What I'm saying is population density-wise.
I understand that, but right now your vote doesn't count for everything. You can vote and it doesn't even make a shit. It doesn't. I'm not saying that the concept of getting rid of it completely is the right way to go. It needs to be refashioned so one vote counts. You look at, I would say that would be fine if you didn't have the gerrymandering that goes on. And both parties have used it.
Oh, yeah, the
but
reframing
gerrymandering's got to be fucking done away with. And so make it so one vote counts. The purpose of the Electoral College was for small states that didn't have a population base would still have a say in the government. I understand the whole principle. But there's now enough stretch marks in it that we see. I don't think you ever throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think you should always take a pause and say, I want change instead of flushing the toilet, and figure out how you get there and do it incrementally. Because what
do you think about requiring identification to vote?
I think it's a necessity.
Yeah, I do too, and I've heard people bounce up against that, saying, well, that, for impoverished people, it makes it impossible. I'm like, I don't think it's an impossibility.
Well, it changes from state to state. You go to Mississippi, you take your ID from your college, and it's not accepted at a polling place. They've made it so restrictive there. Oh, yeah, you go to some of these states and some of these counties.
If a state-issued ID, I think, should do it.
I'm with you 100%. But the thing I see today, and you don't hear them talk about restricting, taking the vote away, they're just restricting your polling places. The time. I think election day should be 3 or 4 days. Make it every opportunity possible that everybody gets a chance to vote. Not say
maybe 3 or 4 days might be a touch, but
a couple of days, yeah, of course.
But it could be a required day off from employers.
National holiday,
for sure.
Yeah, but I think it would take more than. But you look at what they're doing today. I mean, in communities of color, Sunday is the day that they gather more than any other. And in many of these places, they don't even allow them vote on Sundays now for one very good reason. They don't want that block voting. Because a lot of times...
Do they ever do elections on Sundays, though? I thought they didn't do them on weekends.
I don't know all the particulars of it. But it's just... There's things that I agree. Because when we lived in Australia, it was a national holiday. Yeah. And if you didn't vote, you were taxed for it, for not voting.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think we should make voting... Everyone have the opportunity to get a vote and make it count. I don't care what color, gender, whatever you are, but I think you do need to have an established ID card. I think that's the least you can ask. Just showing up, you need a ticket to get in, and your ID card should be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most meaningful rights that we have, the ability to go and voice your opinion, and I think it should mean something. And yeah, it's.
Well, we've got so out of whack with that. Again, the pendulum has swung. I don't want to blame any one person for it, but it's. I mean, they're not even trying to hide some of their prejudices for it, but again, it's swinging.
Prejudice for what?
Who can vote? Who can't vote? We've been having absentee ballots ever since I was in the military. I don't have any problem. And they haven't really come up with any fraud even today. I mean, there's bits and pieces of it, but it's
kind of defeats the ID and your ability to vote, though. I'm not saying that conspiratorially, but that's
no. I understand your point. No, your point's valid. I don't disagree with that. But there's ways to change that. There's ways to make it work. But like you said, it's such a precious right that if not the most important right that we have to voice, our opinions, whatever they might be. And that narrative is being so controlled today. And it's so whether it's Fox News or CNN, I mean, these guys are out there on both sides of the spectrum. At
least they're open about it.
Yeah, they make no bones about it.
Yeah,
I watch PBS. I watch, they have such a great. No screaming and yelling. It's, they have people come on, they talk. It's great conversations, and they have a very wide variety of people and concept and ideas that they bring on.
Yeah, I don't really care where people get their information from, as long as they're not blindly assuming that every source they receive it from is a burning bush.
Oh, boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah. No, I agree. But whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or a centrist, it's today it's just friggin' tribal.
Who do you think the Democrats will put up next?
Newsom.
You think so?
Yeah.
And who do you think the Republicans? DeSantis?
Yeah. Newsom, as much as people don't like him, he's running the 5th largest economy in the world, and it's in the black. There's many of this stuff that he does I don't agree with. DeSantis, he hasn't got on the national stage yet. I don't know, Christie maybe. I don't know if Christie's even up for it anymore. There's some great people in the Republican Party and the Democrat that I mean, it costs so friggin' much money now.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's just, we talk about we can't afford for health care or solving a homeless population. You look at what we spend nationally every year or every voting cycle just on advertising. Oh, it pales into what we need. But then you get in that cycle, okay, the more money you throw at it, the worse the problem gets. You know, there's got to be bumpers on the walls to make this stuff work.
What are you guys going to who are your guests going to be for Thanksgiving now that the other seats are empty?
They're gone? Well, we've been going to the Romneys for our old friends. That's nice family.
You guys around the corner?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it was I just lost two friends within 6 days that have been dear friends of mine for 60 years. And that kind of makes you go outside and go, oh, shit, maybe I'm a little older than I thought I was.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So how old are you going to be in January?
76.
Do you remember, I'm assuming you think about your mortality now more than you do previously in your life?
Depends on what time of day it is.
As a general concept, because of like what you said, you have people who are in your peer group that are passing at a rate that was more frequent than earlier in your life.
Quite honestly, I don't. I do when I try to move, and that's just for a blink of an eye when I can't get out of a chair, or I was working on the dishwasher and had to get up off the floor. Guy said, Jesus, I hope nobody's watching me do this. But the rest of the time, you know, when I get up, I get a few steps under me, you know. Shit, I still feel pretty cocky, but I know it's not there.
No, I mean, I ask because I can't really put a finger on it, but probably within the last year, and it's not a conscious decision, but yeah. I'm at this place where I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, first off, I never thought I was going to be 45. It was a number that, as I'm sure 77 was a number that you probably weren't thinking about when you were 45. It seemed unreasonable, but it seems like every day somebody of note who I know nothing about and never had any impact on their life. They never really had an impact on mine, but they'll make the news and it's like, so-and-so died at 60. So-and-so died at 55. And I'm sitting here, I'm not great at math, but I can do fucking basic math. And I'm subtracting my age from their age, and the numbers are getting smaller.
Well, I'm kind of a wise ass, and go figure, right? But I think about it, because I look at it as like a runway. And I'm going, it's like the last Tom Cruise thing. I don't know if I can get that jet off the ground fast enough to get off over that abruptment, It's the runways are getting shorter. What I try to do now is appreciate things more consciously than what I have in the past. I'm more cautious of how I walk. I try to keep myself healthy. Yeah, but I've been involved in sports for so long with young people that it has kept me vital. I would drive home from rugby practice and sit in my truck for 10 minutes because I couldn't get out. I was so damn stiff and sore. But I'd go in and have, a nice 4-finger cocktail, and I'd wander down the hall, go to bed, and I was all right. But no, it really does give you a pause when, when you see the ones that it just never really felt real, and now it's more than real. I mean, it's a reality. I was sitting at my dear friend Donna's memorial service last Sunday, and just when you've got the time to sit there and you're thinking, I mean, I don't go in churches anymore, but I had to go into this one, and I'm sitting there and I had plenty of time, and I just thought of all the years, all the experiences, because there were 6 of us that raised our families. It was Mom and myself, Nick and Donna, and Tony and Sue. And now Nick, Donna, and Mom are gone. Half of us are gone. And my first question, I'm going, oh, shit, who's next? I'm going, well, I feel pretty cocky today, but it's a reality, and if I haven't seen someone in 4 or 5 years, And then I see him, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, you look old. And they said, have you looked in the mirror lately? So, but we laugh about it. Yeah, for me, I've always had such a friggin' sense of humor that, I told Debbie, I said this morning, I said, I hope I'm laughing sitting out on this porch on Andy's. I said, this is where I want to die, is on Andy's porch looking out at that.
Like actually on the porch?
Yep.
That's
I said,
super rude, but okay.
Yeah, that's no problem. But I think get a big fire build out. Just roll me right out to the fire,
Just drag you out to the fire pit
I'm
with
good
the
with
tractor?
it. Yeah,
Okay.
shit, yes.
Listen, I would be fine doing that. I don't think that Debbie or Leah would appreciate that particular move.
Well, we won't invite them then.
I'm still going to have to deal with the consequences of said actions.
I don't know,
Well, what
I
else
am
do you
so
wanna-
friggin' amazed I'm even this friggin' old. I mean, the car accidents, the wars, a lot of different things I don't want to talk about right now, but, I charged hard all my life, and I've enjoyed every bit of it, and dodged some bullets, and I feel very thankful to be here, and I'm just enjoying watching my family grow up. It's the reason I'm coming back.
What, you have a lot of things to look at in the rearview mirror, an unknown amount of time to look out in the road in front of you. What do you still want to accomplish in your life at this point?
I want to see my grandkids be able to go to their weddings. I don't go any farther than that. The rest of it's all bullshit. I'll take as good a care of myself as I can. I want to be able to fish. I want that's another reality. Buster's got a couple good years, and I thought, you're sitting there and you go, okay, I'll get another dog. Shit, I ain't going to outlive him. That's you think about that stuff now. I think about it. I'm going,
You could get a
geez,
dog
Andy's going to have to he's going to have to end up finishing raising his dog.
I mean, you could get a dog with a shorter lifespan.
I don't think I need another crank, But anyway, those are things you think about that you didn't. But no, seeing my grandkids, being able to sit in that front seat with a big shit-eating grin on my face and my cowboy hat and, whatever. That really is important to me. I want to see those because it's all the stuff that from now in the between, which is the harvest. And that to me it's all about harvesting now, It's just...
Is there anything else that you want to accomplish? Do you want to go hunting again?
No, all that, yeah. I'd love to, I want to be able to fly fish again. I can't get in the water. I'm too unstable with my legs, but I'll figure that out.
I think you can do floats.
Yeah, I can do that. But I want to hunt, I'd love to do some hunts with you, with my grandkids, all kind, just to be there. You don't have to, it's just, I want to travel. I want to go back to France. I want to go back to Australia. I want to go to New Zealand. I think Spain would be a nice place. Got some great food in Spain.
When are you going to start doing that?
When we move up here. Yeah, when you get settled, and I sell that other house, and I got some grease there that I can use it. Yeah, stuff like that. I think I still have things to offer, coaching-wise.
I'm amazed you would want to get back into coaching, given how...
I'm a masochist.
Well, we don't have to get into specifics, but broadly, you basically bounced up against an ideology that, I can't speak for you, but the choice was either continue to play in that particular ecosystem or move on for your own personal sanity. And I don't think that ideology is going anywhere.
Yeah, it was a lot of things. You inspired me a lot with your talk about leadership, and I realized I always used it. I didn't quite verbalize it like you did, but I started using it. Teamwork. And for so many years, I didn't have a problem with that because I had great leadership at the upper level of my club. And when that leadership took a turn that I couldn't control, the whole culture of what I can't say myself, but those that I coached with, we had developed, was really struggling. And I just realized I couldn't change it. You know, there's such a, sports is not a politically correct game. You know, I'm sorry. It's something that I love because there's so much of people, young people today don't do something that's bigger than them individually. Mm. And sports it's teamwork, covering your teammates' back.
It's everything.
It's everything.
Communication, it's conflict management.
Everything. And it will give them the biggest success in the rest of their lives. And I for some reason lost. Our team got so big that I was trying to manage something that I lost in that shuffle of the largeness, so much of the leadership that, I mean, we had the number 2 team in Northern California, and all of a sudden, all of what we'd worked so hard for evaporated. And I love these gals, still great people, but again, the changes in society, you know, the pronouns, the genders, and
what are your thoughts on that?
Huh?
What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it's the pendulum swinging. For so long, they've been so naked and out there. Again, in my lifetime, with Tony's brother and his gayness, where it couldn't even be talked about. And I sat the gals down and I just said, look, you're your own worst enemies here.
Yeah.
You've got a community that I respect. You know, you need to have it. You need a safe place. But some of your behavior, like I told him, I said, you don't shit in your own nest. And this is what's happening. You know, what I come to find out after talking to some of my veteran players that came back and saw me to make sure I was okay after I resigned, and still do. They were describing to me all the stuff that I never knew that was going on in their community, but they respected me enough and kept it so I didn't have to deal with it. They knew what I was. I took care of the team, they took care of the club, and all of a sudden that veil had been lifted. And I went, oh shit.
Well, it's to be expected that things will change in your team because you're going to have people graduate, new people come in, leadership is going to change.
I don't, leadership, well, yeah, I guess.
Personality, what I mean is, to the veil, right, or the protective mechanism that was there you weren't aware of, is based off of individuals creating that, and then eventually when they graduate, you know what I mean, like things are naturally going to change.
You know, I'm sure a bunch of this will be heaped on me as being my fault or something, and I'm good with it. I know that there wasn't any more I could do. There needed to be a change in the leadership, and I realized that if I pushed for it, it was going to do more harm than it was going to do good. And I just thought enough of that team. I said, I'm not going to force that. The health and welfare of these other people were more important to me than my welfare. I'd be okay. I accomplished what I wanted. I would have loved to have this, because this was going to be my last year anyway. And I certainly wish them all the best, but on a personal level, it's been hard. But I've come to grips with it. It's like any other life decision. You got to intellectualize it. You got to look at the emotions. You know, biggest thing is I was losing sleep. I was having panic attacks, and I realized that shit. You talk about people dying.
Yeah.
At my age, stress will kill you. And I just said, man, I'm like you. When I do something, I'm all in. You know, I'm 3 weeks out in front of the team where we're at, you know, and I've already got shit lined up. Things might change. I can move the chess pieces, but I've already made the decisions what we do. Mm-hmm. And I looked out there and I'm going, that ain't going to work. And I just said, no, it's time to move on.
Yeah, I think you made the right call. You sounded conflicted at first, but in the few weeks that it's been since then, I think, I mean, as an individual fighting against that particular ideology and system would have been like you standing at the beach screaming at the ocean trying to change the tide.
Yeah, it's exactly it. It's like standing there pissing in the ocean. It's going to wash right back up on top of you. And they're great people. They're so vulnerable in some ways, and by being so overt or so aggressive with their stuff, I had a wonderful conversation with one of Debbie's oldest friends, who's been a lesbian her whole life, and she's in her 70s. And I asked her, I said, "What's the hell's the story about the pronouns?" She says they're fighting the wrong battle. They said the vocabulary thing's going to go away. It's not going to. I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's my pronouns? Does it matter?" Well, one of them made the mistake asking me, and I told him, and so she just laughed.
What pronouns did you go with?
I said dickhead and asshole.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, and they just kind of, oh, okay. And I was struggling, but they knew me well enough that, I got to the point I just called them y'all, But there'd be like times that there'd be a player on the ground, and I said, she did that wrong. But if she's not identifies herself as she, you did it wrong. Well, no, I'm using a collective term for all of us here. I guess I said you all didn't do that. But it was just a lot of conflicts. But they were very gracious with me. I guess it just wore... And the language they were starting to use for incidents like, traumatize and... those are big words.
They're big words, and they actually mean something.
They mean a lot.
Until you use them for everything, and then they don't mean anything.
And so I was struggling with that. I got called into my whole coaching staff got called into a meeting by a Title IX officer. And it was about an incident at training where I'd touched someone. And
describe what you mean by that.
Well, I was demonstrating a position if the ball's on the ground, your ball player is protecting the ball, how you go over, grab them and protect them and make the ball available.
The reason I said that is you were demonstrating and describing something that was going to happen multiple times, probably in every single practice and in every rugby game that they would ever play in. Not something that was fucking out in left field.
Well, what was out in left field for them is having men touch them, because I had the confidence of so many, especially the veterans, and I didn't realize how many of these gals had been sexually molested by a family member. So I got it, but I just said, "Why didn't you come tell me about this?" I said I had made these adjustments, but so I go to the Title IX meeting. And, it's all about this touching and what have you. And typical me, I get all fired up and just getting after it with the officer. But we calmed down and made some compromises and worked it out and said, you need to ask the players, can I touch you, this, that, and what have you. And I'm thinking, how's this all going to work? But I just walked out of the meeting with my staff, and I was heading down the stairs, and I just said, "Hey, I'm too old for this shit. I'm not going to live in my career in a Title IX lawsuit." I didn't mean that I was going to quit or anything, but it just gave me pause to going to practice going, Jesus, what can we do? And I respect that. I understand what was going on, because first year or two I would not have understood it at all. But I had got to know enough of them. We had a gal in our championship rugby game that got a concussion, and a male first responder come over and grabbed her, and she passed out. It was so traumatic for her. Mm-hmm. So you start putting those bits and pieces together, and I said, okay, I personally have to, but the word thing got to me. I just thought, I'm out here traumatizing somebody. I said, I'm your biggest supporter. Because the year before we had a sexual harassment thing happen from the men's team to them, and it got to the point that the women weren't even going to practice on the same field with the men. And I just sat them down, and I said, "Look, you want to go to war with this, I'll be the first one in line with a baseball bat. But we've got to look at this. We've got to look at all the facts. We just don't react and settle them down, and we came to a great compromise. So it wasn't like I hadn't earned my bones with them.
My only issue with what you're describing, and I start by saying this, I can't even fathom what it would be like to be molested.
Yeah.
Let alone a stranger, probably even worse by a family member, right? Because it shatters your thought of what family should be. So I cannot empathize with that more. I can't even fucking fathom how bad that would be. But we all have our own shit, and we all have our own trauma. And I think it's really important for people to remember that you're not responsible for the trauma that happens to you in your life, especially at that, like, I'm assuming most of this was at younger ages where they had probably little or nothing that they thought that they could do about it. Yeah. But you are absolutely responsible with how you deal with that trauma going forward.
Well, it's a real it's got a lot of rooms in it. And this is not the medium that I really want to explore all of that. But I did respect what they were saying.
I respect what they're saying too, but it has to have fucking limits.
Well, to them it didn't, because it destroyed a very important part of their life, and I can't understand it all like you, but I understand. I took the time to, and I've had enough players that have come and seen me since I've resigned and have talked to me about it, about very, very personal incidences that I was thankful that they shared it with me. But it's still it's such a complicated issue.
But again, I'm going to go back to this. They're not responsible for what happened to them.
But they were going to be responsible for what happened to them afterwards.
Correct. But so what I'm saying is that if that was going to be an issue, if you are the female rugby coach, a contact sport, and if anybody's ever played a contact sport, one of the things you're going to have to learn how to do is make contact without injuring yourself. Like, you have to teach people how to fucking tackle so they don't break their necks and arms and backs tackling. There is going to be some level where a coach is going to need to demonstrate. And if it is that much of a trigger, then up front, they need to probably say, hey, like, I can't play for a team that has a male coach.
Well, I tried. I mean, their big push right now is to get a women's coach for next year. I tried for 3 years to get a women's coach. All the things that they wanted, I had already tried. You know, I mean, we made concessions. We had veterans players that we could touch, we could show, because it's not the contact of the game that was causing the problem. It was the contact from male coaches at practice.
That's how you learn to survive the contact of the game. And take the male-female, like, a coach is going to, you know what I mean? There is going to be some level of contact.
Yeah, but they would do that contact with themselves, you know. And it's not the easiest thing to explain, because it was a lot of years and a lot of exploration for myself. And because there was other things there that created the split that I could have dealt with the contact issues, but there was just a structural thing that was going on there, and how they were treating each other's.
Pull that microphone closer to you.
Yeah, how they were treating each other's. They were just, they're young, they're adventurous, doing all the things that you do when you're young. But like I would tell them, I go, you're your own worst enemies here. It was unfortunate. I wish them, like I said.
They lost probably their biggest ally.
Well, they didn't lose me, but they can't use me anymore.
You'll have to describe to me the difference in that at some point in time.
I know. I know. That's a pill I'm still struggling
but still, and that's the thing. I've known you my whole life, obviously. They could not have had somebody who cared more about them, but now can't do anything for them because of what happened. Like, they had somebody there who would have done anything possible for them. Mm-hmm. They got pushed out because of that well, I don't want to say ideology. Like I said, I have no understanding of what it would like to be that level of physical
There
abuse.
was alphabet soup. There was a lot of alphabet.
But that's what I'm saying.
Letters.
There's other ways to fucking handle this that doesn't terminate in somebody that cares so deeply about them getting to a place going, you know what? At this point in my life, it's no longer worth it to me.
Well, what happened is I took it so seriously, and it was such a huge part of my life. Like you, I'm in. I mean, I spent all summer. I had folders of drills, and coming up with my whole mantra for this year was no problems, just solutions. Simple little things that you could build on.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, yeah. Well, welcome to life. Yeah, and
I guess.
It's I was so close to them, and it hurt me so bad what I saw, and I don't think they saw what I saw. A few of them did. I met with all the veterans players. They had me come back 3 nights after I had resigned, and we talked as a group. And they were apologetic. We'll do better, this and this. But then by then I'd already made my mind up. And there were things that maybe they were aware of or weren't, that structural wise that wasn't going to work. But I know when I left the meeting, I went out to my truck and there were 8 of them. They just gave me the greatest hugs, and I got great emails from them. So I mean, they reached out. It was unfortunate. Welcome to life. It is what it is. I had to make a decision based on what was best for me. I know it was really, really hard for Debbie. She was worried about me a lot because I was stressing a lot. And I just was laying in bed one night, and I just, I talked to your mom all the time. And I was laying there and I said, baby, I need some help here. I need some direction. And I swear to God, about an hour later, it was like, hey, dummy. I hate to make fun of this, but it was right when I first watched the second Tom Cruise movie, and he was meeting with his
Be careful. He's a fucking national treasure.
I understand. but when he was meeting with his old wingman, and he typed in...
Iceman?
You
have to let it go.
Yeah. I had tears running down my face because I realized that was me. It's tough. But I said, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I got a family I want to spend many more years with. And I always want to try to be a better person. And I knew I was going to do nothing but get angry and fight. And that wasn't going to make anybody better.
Yeah. You made a comment the other day that surprised me. You said that you wish you could have done something differently with your mom. And I'm curious what you think you could have done differently.
Oh, what I should have done is disregarded my father and just engulfed my mother with as much love as I could.
Isn't that what we tried, though?
We tried, but I should have went and visited her when she was in the rest homes before she died and all of that.
Do you think that he would have let you? I feel like he would have been a roadblock the entire way.
It's a roadblock I'd have ran right over. Even that is not healthy, So, but no, I understand there's a lot of that I couldn't. It's probably the biggest regret, if not the biggest regret in my life, is not taking better care of my mom. At least letting her know I knew how much she loved me and that I could express to her how much I loved her. Because the last conversation I had with her is when we had a restraining order getting ready to be put in place.
This was after they called the cops on us right after Christmas?
Yeah. And she just called me and said, I just can't go through with this. And I said, Mom.
So are you talking about... So my memory of it is that we were essentially going to go remove her from that situation, and she was going to come be with us.
No,
not with us necessarily.
Actually, the restraining order was before we went up and met with them after Christmas.
Really?
Yeah. A very dear friend of them got a hold of me and said, look, you got to get your mom to an attorney. Clarence is strong-arming her into changing a lot of the documents of the trust, putting him in complete power. So I grabbed her, took her to the attorney, and he said, the first thing we have to do is get a restraining order put on him. And she was so embarrassed. And so it was going to be put in place the next day. And she called me that night and just said, I can't go through with it. And I just told her, I said, look, that's your choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't, it's not my place to tell you what to do or not do with your life. I have to respect that. But Mom, I can't walk that. I can't walk that line. And I didn't see her again until that confrontation with the police at his house. And that was the last time I had ever seen her. Donnie saw her a couple times because he had her in a rest home around the corner. And I wish I would have gone and seen her. But he said she probably wouldn't have remembered it anyway. She was...
what year did she die?
Oh, shit, I can't remember.
I don't think that there's anything different that you could have done.
Probably not. That's just, and I'm coming to grips with it. It's...
I mean, like you said, she had a choice that she had to make. Have you ever considered that she made the choice that she did because she realized you were strong enough?
Probably. She had never seen anybody stand up to her husband like I did, and that scared her because she knew what he was capable of. When
did that actually start with you and your dad? You start butting heads?
Oh, God. I got home from the Vietnam War, and I came home, and I didn't immediately, but I started sympathizing with the movement against the war. Not the people who were certain, that was a conflict for me, but supporting the effort to get the war stopped because it was such a sham. And we did not see eyeball to eyeball about that. And it was a rift that never we were able to resolve. And it's one of the reasons I went to Australia, for a lot of different reasons. And we almost didn't come home. The only reason we really came home was Casey was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. But Dad, Grandpa, he was always, he was such a Pandora's box of emotions. One minute he's a, kind, loving soul, and then the next minute he's just this vicious, just nasty person.
Was he like that his whole life? Well, what did Donnie say about him growing up?
Donnie I told you the other night, the last time I saw Donnie.
Donnie was my dad's brother.
Yeah, Donnie was my dad's brother. He's my uncle. And every time I'd go see Donnie, he'd always ask what had happened, because Clarence forced his mom and dad to make a choice between Donnie and himself.
From a business perspective,
but it just ended everything.
Yeah, of course.
There was nothing. And the last time I went and saw him, he was on his deathbed. He died 2 days later. I'm sitting there in a chair next to him in bed, holding his hand, and he wanted to talk about it again.
Fuck.
Yeah. I tried so many times to get him into some type of help. I did the same thing with Clarence. I'd already been through the vet center, the VA.
What did he think about that? What did he think about your willingness to go and seek help?
Oh, Jesus. Patty's dad died. We came back to California for the service. I took my mom aside and told her what I was doing. She says, "Oh, God, we can't say anything to your dad." I said, "Man, I don't care." Well, he found out somehow. He would call me, go, "Are you healthy yet?" Yeah, I could elaborate on that comment. He said other things. And I just, but yeah, it was. I wonder why my bubble's a little bit off sometimes, But it
You're-
either makes you worse or it makes you better.
Your bubble is your bubble.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I think if you people who tell me that their families are like perfect all the way through their family tree,
Bullshit.
I'm like, yeah, I think I think all families have those issues, but to think that Donnie on his deathbed wanted
Was
to
still
still
trying to
figure out
resolve it.
why.
I mean, that man was such a gentle soul. He literally became my father. And, it was, I know when I gave his eulogy at his memorial service, it was a lot of stuff came out of my heart that I knew was there, but I didn't realize I was strong enough to let out. So that was a very cleansing thing. Yeah, it's families, I swear to God. That's why I sat down one time with you and your sister, and I said, we're going to decide right now. We're going to agree to disagree, and it's okay. There's just, you get too damn amped up in this shit. It's
I just don't think it when you said that you wish you had done more or something different.
probably done something different. I don't know, more was the right word.
Well, it's a tough one because I wouldn't want to have a conversation with you on your deathbed about your mom. I don't. And again, I was younger. I don't even think I was a teenager yet. I don't think I saw Clarence after that day.
Well, you were 13.
Yeah. I know Casey and I went up to that house.
She got a letter from Clarence.
We both did. Registered mail. He used to
Yeah.
love to send shit registered mail, which is, I think, was just his way of making sure that we actually physically received it. Whether or not we read it is, of course, a different thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know her and I went up by ourselves once, but I think it was, I can't remember if it was before or after that incident at the house where he called the cops.
I think it was after.
I think it was after as well.
Because he said some things in there about you, too. He's going to cut you guys out or this or that. And Casey went up there and confronted him.
Yeah.
Said,
Yeah, go ahead,
you
motherfucker.
really, yeah, go ahead, you asshole. Is this really,
Yeah, you could take everything you have and just jam it directly up your asshole. I could care
that's
less.
right.
But I mean, your mom had to make choices too, and I don't think there's anything else that you could have done. I don't know if there was another path.
The only thing that got me through it was your mom and my dear friends. Because my friends, whether it was Mad Dog, Tony, JL, a whole host of people are saying, man, your dad's crazy. To me, he was everything he was a monster of a man, and I worked with him. I'm a young man like you. My pinnacle's just being with these guys and hanging and getting through the day and say I did it. I made my mark, no matter how small or wide it is. That's my mark. And I was an only child, and Jesus, it's just my mom doted on me, but we never had anybody over at the house. I learned no social skills growing up. I went to high school. People must have thought I was the most spoiled person in the world because I didn't know how to interact with people. We never had anybody come to our house. Yeah, my dad was he was a sociopath. He just he had a lot of problems, just a lot. He was a dry drunk. He damn near killed a guy in a bar when he was 22 or 23, and just quit drinking. But he had all the behavioralisms of an alcoholic. But it shapes a lot of stuff. Your mom and I tried so hard not to present that kind of shit to you kids when you were growing up. And
That speaks to my point. You're not responsible for the trauma that happens to you in your life, but you are responsible with what you do with it in your recovery.
Well, it's delightful talking to Debbie, and she always comments about, good God, your kids, they're just what strong individuals,
Well, I mean, your daughter's fucking crazy, but I'm completely normal.
Yeah, I love that kind of craziness. But it's she's a micromanager, but she's a strong gal. I mean, gosh. Yeah, I hope she finds a middle ground that will take some of that pressure off her, because I know it's not healthy for her. And I know a lot of the garbage she dumped on you as a kid, and it creates a lot of a lot of problems or discomfort for you two. Debbie, I said, Debbie, I'm not getting involved. It's not my shit. I said, I love them dearly. I'd give them my last breath, either one of them. But I said, this is, I didn't have kids. I mean, brothers or sisters. And I said, it is what it is. But that's where I got at this point in my life. I got after your wedding, which was such a wonderful family affair in so many ways. And I knew Santa Cruz wasn't where I was going to end up. And I just told Debbie, I said, I want to live near one of my children. And
my daughter's crazy, so Montana it is.
Yeah, well, I think we're all crazy, and I think that I love it. I love that craziness. It's I couldn't imagine being sane. I mean, it would be so boring.
That was the word I was just going to use.
Yeah. Christ, if you can't laugh, I mean, you really are handicapped. If you can't enjoy life, and it's not like you and I are so much different than a lot of people, but we viewed the world from a lot of different perspectives that thankfully a lot of people haven't had to view it. And you look at it and people complain and you just go, you dumb shits, you still don't realize how friggin' lucky you are. You don't have a friggin' reason to complain, for Christ. People say, how was your day? I'm standing at the baker the other day, and the gal was behind me, and I said, well, I went out and pissed in the garden this morning. Nobody was shooting at me, and it's a great day. You
don't have to say all your thoughts out loud.
Oh, I do.
Well, in order for us to continue having a happy life, we should not upset our wives, who are likely done with their activities right now.
Are we going to get the pedicure now?
No, they are getting a mani-pedi and hopefully a few flutes of champagne so they can enjoy their time. But we should probably wrap it up and head back out because we're going to get to see the kiddos today.
Well, thanks for having me on.
What do you want to close it out with? Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts? It's a pleasure to be here again. I've enjoyed all your comments. They've all been very tender, loving comments.
Who are you talking to, me?
No, I'm talking to your viewers. They've been very, very sweet.
How do they reach out to you? You have no understanding of electronics whatsoever. So how is this even possible?
Well, I figured it out. Took me 3 computers and but it's it's a great opportunity. I'll share something with you. Late at night sometimes when I'm feeling really down, I'll listen to 1 or 2 of our podcasts because I just love listening to you and your laugh. It's something I don't get to hear enough, because when you laugh sometimes, especially when we were talking about the condoms in the truck and you almost falling off the chair, I don't care what happens the next day. Nothing's going to throw me off a keel. And those are things that hopefully our family will always be able to have to go back and look on. And they're treasures. And I thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My pleasure. All right, let's get the fuck out of here so we don't get in trouble.
All right.